Hey everybody, welcome to another episode. I'm really excited to show you this one. I know I say that every time, but I'm not crying wolf this time around. This is really a fun park. It's called the Parc de Bagatelle, and if you're not familiar with it, get ready to fall in love today. The Parc de Bagatelle is about 60 acres or so, and it makes up part of the Bois de Boulogne out here in the western part of town, along the western edge of Paris. And the whole area was conceived originally under Napoleon III and Baron Haussmann, and beautiful green space. The Parc de Bagatelle is perhaps, well, I know that it's most famous for its rose gardens, which we will get to, but I have a lot of stuff to show you along the way. If you're here for the roses, just go ahead and fast forward a bit through the episode. There are two main entrances, and this one that we're looking at is called the Grille de Sèvres, and it's on the westernmost edge of the Parc de Bagatelle. There also happens to be an eastern entrance, which will get the job done, called the Grille d'Honneur. But this architecture is spectacular, and we've got so much eye candy to enjoy today. And what a way, as you can see, to enter any park. And then here behind us, to the side, we've got a restaurant in this old style. Just spectacular. And we've got a nice partly sunny day today. It's early enough in the morning that we've almost got this place to ourselves. And we're gonna start with a grand residence called the Château de Bagatelle. And I've got some fun stuff to tell you about the history of that residence that we see in the distance there. But you'll notice, even as before we get there, the entrance, we got those two little pavilions of sorts, those little kiosks on either side, and then you're flanked on both sides by this is such a French thing, isn't it? To be surrounded by lovely statues as you enter a property. Wow. I want to point out this is a park that you do need to pay to enter. It's €2.50. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but it is well worth it because they really maintain this park very well. The gardens, the chateau that we're headed toward right now. Holy, that view. Oh, it's so breathtaking. The chateau we're headed to now, last time I was here, I think it was a year ago, it was all covered up with scaffolding and they were cleaning it up and restoring it, and now it is absolutely glorious. Woo! This was a site of royal hunting grounds originally. And what used to be here on this spot was it was a little outpost for the royal security guards who were helping out with those royal hunts. And then the building was transformed into something much more that we'll get into in a second, but I don't want to miss this great staircase and the sphinxes. Perhaps we'll even put both in the shot. Yes. And these are not to be missed. Everywhere you go, you come across lion heads, and we got plenty of them here. And I think this is noteworthy as well, this rather unique ironwork on all the windows. So it's rather interesting as you enter. As you can see, it's a bit of a sunken-in piece of property with walls on all four sides. So back to the Château de Bagatelle. It was transformed essentially into a party venue for the royal court, especially under a young Louis XV. And it developed a reputation for an anything-goes party atmosphere where there was a lot of debauchery going on with the nobility. Just up here to have a good time. Sort of an adult playground. And in fact, Bagatelle, the name of this chateau and the name of the park. Bagatelle is a French word that means a trifle or something that's rather frivolous, unimportant, not a big deal. But it's also that word is used as slang for a brief and frivolous adult interaction, we shall say. And so a lot of that was happening here among the nobility and the royals. And so it became known as the Parc de Bagatelle for those frivolous love affairs. This version of the pavilion that we see, the chateau, is from 1777, just before the French Revolution. And it's when the property was owned by a count called the Comte d'Artois. He happened to be the brother of Louis XVI. And the building was dilapidated and in disrepair when the Count took ownership of it. And his sister-in-law, none other than Marie Antoinette, Queen of France, made a little bet and challenged the Count. I bet you can't spruce this place up in the next 100 days before myself, the Queen, and my royal court come to visit and party. And he said, I'll do you one better. I'll bet you not only can I do it within 100 days, I'll do it in less than that. And so the Count hired some 900 laborers working night and day at huge expense. And in fact, the Count got it done in 64 days as a result and impressed Marie Antoinette, who eventually would come to visit the property. So let's get a little bit closer here. That same Count would later, for history fans, he later would become a monarch of France known as Charles X during the Restoration period. Post-revolution, when they tried to bring back the Bourbon dynasty, and it didn't work out because there was yet another revolution, and Charles X got removed from power, just like his brother Louis XVI had previously. Now we can peek through the doors here. I actually took a photograph ahead of time, so I will put that up on the screen right now. It's much better than what I'm able to show you on this video. So there is a view of the main entrance of the Château de Bagatelle. And here, look at these beauties here. Wow, that's great. You don't often see that with the chains draped between the lion mouths. This building nowadays usually houses exhibits, but I don't think it's quite open to the public yet. And let me show you one other thing as I back up here. Pardon the backtracking. But in order to show you this, I've got to zoom in. They put this Latin inscription on the top, and it translates into roughly a sentence that says, small but well designed, or perhaps small but stylish. Now, this building on the left of the screen, which is also having a little bit of work done on it, is called the Trianon. At Versailles, we have the Petit Trianon and the Grand Trianon, but here it's also called the Trianon, and this one was built and even inhabited by Mr. Richard Wallace, and those of you some of you might recognize that name as the man who famously invented the Wallace fountains, those green fountains in Paris. So he lived out here the last few years of his life. It was actually built for his son originally by Richard Wallace, but his son actually never lived here, and then when the son passed away, Richard Wallace moved here, spent about 3 years before he passed away in this home. Richard Wallace's dad, in fact, owned this property at one point, and so he inherited it from his family. Some of the structures of the Parc de Bagatelle are thanks to that Wallace family. His father was a British lord. And let me show you the view through here as well. And I think once again, rather than try to show you with all this reflection and glare, I'll just pop up a better photo for you to look at. Okay. Check out the garden. We've got a few school groups visiting today. Beautiful. You know, I don't like to film kids that much, but what I really want to do is backtrack enough for you to see the backside of the Château de Bagatelle. Look at that, just spectacular. So picture perfect. And newly restored for our viewing pleasure. And look at that. You can just imagine what it would have been like in the 18th century when Marie Antoinette came to visit. and they were having those lavish parties out here. This, of course, would have been considered a very small chateau, but a very idyllic property. Okay, onward. We're just getting started. So settle in. I've got a lot of the Parc de Bagatelle to help you discover here. I'm showing you my favorite sites here of the park, but know that it's not an exhaustive tour. So you very much should come and explore on your own. If I haven't mentioned it yet, you can hear a lot of peacocks, because there are wild birds that roam through this park, notably peacocks and a lot of geese. This is the back of that Trianon built by Richard Wallace. A little bit of a river flowing through here. This is fun too. In the back of the Trianon, where there is, I doubt it was a real moat, but you have this sunken in portion that would be very good in terms of security around the back of the home. And then look at this adorable bridge that actually leads to a side entrance of the Trianon. And that must have been a wonderful way to enter the property, the home. Picture perfect spaces here. And what a way for Richard Wallace to live out the final years of his life. Again, that's the side entrance that you would pop over that little bridge to use. Speaking of bridges, another one here. Quite a few ponds in the Parc de Bagatelle. And as I mentioned earlier, we will see what it's most famous for, the extraordinary rose gardens. I guess you could say we're saving the best for last in terms of that, but these early structures aren't too shabby either. I absolutely love this park. It's a trek to get out here, all the way on the western edge of town, but very much worth it. This is Years ago, these wealthy folks enjoyed building follies, les folies, where it was sort of just a playful, fake structure, almost as if you were walking through an adult version of Disneyland or something. And so these are fake ruins. You can call literally les fausses ruines de Bagatelle, made to look old and dilapidated from the Renaissance or the Gothic period or even ancient Rome and Greece. So again, this would all be fabricated ruins. And that was a way to embellish your property and give your guests a proper stroll. This is a Gothic arch, not from the medieval period, but meant to look like it was. Complete with that little guy and even a couple of gargoyles on either side. Let's make our way through this arch up. And there at the end, we're going to have a chance meeting with one of the peacocks without bothering him too much. Don't worry, we're friendly. We're friendly. Don't be scared. Just a flaneur. Another look at the fake medieval ruin that we just walked under. So this is a common sight in the Parc de Bagatelle. And they just roam around and do their thing and fertilize all the grass. You can see they're rather used to having people around. They don't get too freaked out. Little did they know when they woke up this morning that they'd be featured on a YouTube channel. This one's saying hello to the lady, wondering if she's got any nibbles. All right. So here's another, I said this is a park of surprising structures. And we've got here a pagoda, or a little bit of a Chinese kiosk. That is worth a close-up view. So let me take us over there. Remember, if you're watching the premiere, I'll just throw out another reminder that the super chat function should be available in the live chat, and that is a very easy and very appreciated way for you to support the cause in this project and to help me to continue to share these spaces with you. And if you're not watching the premiere and just watching the replay in the distant future, then check out the description for other easy ways to support the project. And just liking and sharing and all of that good stuff, subscribing, of course, is a great way to share, great way to support, rather. So look at this. The original version of this was transferred here from the World Expo of 1867. Every 11 years or so back then, they would have, of course, one of the big World's fairs located in Paris. And in 1867, this was constructed for it. But this is actually not the real one, because later on, an owner of this property transferred the original... Yes, yes, we see you. We see you. He transferred this away to his home in England. So this is an exact replica of the 1867 kiosk from the World's Fair. And what a joy to enjoy this. So that is the little Chinese pagoda tucked away up here on the grounds. Some beautiful trees in this park too. That's a little pond over there. So you've got the green spaces, the rose garden that we'll see, the great old architecture, these surprising historical structures. You've got plenty of picnic areas, all of this grass you're able to walk on and picnic on. So it is a spectacular, the weekends, man, the locals just go to town out here, and it's such a picturesque spot, perfect for kids. So we are just getting started here. I'm going to pop us over to the next spot. We're going to head right in that direction to give you your bearings, but I think in the interest of time, I will edit out a bit of the walk just to speed things up. Okay, so this path brings us to this space, which is mind-blowing in a whole other way. Now we start to really get into the garden aspect of the Parc de Bagatelle. I'm just going to give you the nice slow pan to either side. And this is called the Jardin des Présentateurs, or the Garden of Presenters. And you've got on the far side, you might make out there's a sort of trellis thing against the wall where you can install climbing roses. I don't know if that's the proper term, but the roses that climb up walls. And look at this view here. So you've got the archway and then the little Maison du Jardinier, the gardener's house. And it doesn't get much more perfect than that. So this is called the Presenter's Garden because there is an annual rose competition that was created in the early 1900s thanks to the designer of these gardens, a man by the name of Forestier, or Forester, you could translate it as, which is interesting that one of the premier gardeners had the word forest in his name. So Forestier, around 1905, started to create this area and also the famous rose gardens that we'll see later on. And he also, right around the same time, a couple of years into that process, he created one of the very first international competitions for new roses. And this was one of the display areas, sort of one of the main stages where rose experts could, show their creations, put them on display. And the only caveat or the agreement was, if you enter the competition and you display your roses here, of course the park gets to keep the rose installation. Look at this. And tell me this isn't just the most picture-perfect garden experience you could have. All right, let's walk through the arches here. That rose competition happens every June, which is why I particularly was waiting to do this episode now. It is June at the moment, and so it's right around that time where the roses are in bloom and the competition takes place. And they just had something called the Weekend of the Rose. And that's where they have a lot of events and lectures and poetry and workshops and all sorts of beautiful events here designed around roses, all on the subject of roses. And definitely check your video settings right now and pop the resolution up to the highest setting you can. An episode like this really deserves it. Quite a peculiar little flower. I'm sure some of you out there know what this is. So this is not even the main rose garden. We're not even there. You'll know it when we get there. This is the garden of the presenters. Le Jardin des Présentateurs. The birds chirping. And look at this adorable little pavilion. It can't possibly get any better than that. It's like I walk into a Tolkien novel or something. Just perfection. Ah, and everything's so lush this time of year. I definitely recommend coming around mid-May into June, and then really any of the summer months. But just look at this perspective. Always look up and always turn around. Look at this. It's too good to be true. It's too good to be true with the blue sky. I don't want to leave. Don't want to leave. We're going to head that way in a moment towards the rose bushes. But look at this. It's worth taking a look at the backside. What we're walking into now is what they call the potager, or a sort of vegetable and herb garden. But, I mean, I should just shut up, because what can I say? There's nothing I could add in words that could enhance the experience here. We get a nice little breeze coming through. So those with an eagle eye can maybe see in the center of our screen that we're coming upon the famous, enormous rose gardens that the Parc de Bagatelle is famous for. But before we get there, look at this. Because every great French garden has an orangerie. And if you don't know, just to get you up to speed, an orangerie, you can hear the word orange or orange in it. They were originally to house the orange trees in the winter, because you'd have them in planters and you'd bring them out in your garden in the summertime, but the winters were too cold to keep the orange trees outdoors. This one's from the 19th century, but it's in the style of a 1700s bit of classical French architecture. And this is, my goodness. As if we already haven't been spoiled enough with all the eye candy. This building has exhibits of painting and sculpture many months of the year. Each year it also houses, as if this space wasn't great enough, it houses the Chopin Festival every year. And during the Chopin Festival, there's an ongoing series of piano recitals, some of them by candlelight, from about mid-June into mid-July. So imagine coming here for a candlelight recital of Chopin. I think this year they're adding a lot of Beethoven as well to the program. And this is the orangerie of the rose garden. So when you pay that €2.50 to enter this park, you know, let's face it, you get your money's worth. We've seen that already. That's very clear. And it'll become abundantly clear when we get over there to the official rose garden. As I said before, the Parc de Bagatelle is most famous for its roses over this way. And again, always look up, always turn around, so wow. Just as good as it gets. So much blue sky. What I love about approaching the roses from this side is I'm just absolutely in love with that little kiosk up there, and it adds. Remember last time I came here, I could not stop photographing the roses in the foreground and the little kiosk up there on the hill. It is just so charming, it almost makes you sick. And I'll get us closer to that kiosk later. I'll tell you a little more about it. Look at this. Here I go. You're gonna hear me sighing into my microphone again, like I have done on previous garden walks. There are over 1,200 varieties of roses over here, and it's one of France's largest and oldest rose gardens. And it's thanks to that man I mentioned before called Forestier, through the early 1900s, rehabilitated this whole section of the park. And this was part of his original conception. And he designed this space, just like what we saw previously, for showcasing roses. And the international competition of roses happens here as well. And you can see these numbers, see how they're labeled with numbers, these little plaques along the way. And I would assume that is how the judges decide which roses they deem are the winners. And so don't worry, I'm going to take my time and give you a nice, proper stroll. And it's quite a cloudy day today at the moment at least, and so maybe we'll get a few glimpses of sunlight, I hope. Oh, again, it's called the Empress's Kiosk. And tell me that's just not the most, just begging to be photographed. So if you're going to have what they just had, I said, called the Weekend of the Rose, if you're going to have it in the Paris region, this is definitely the spot, clearly. Where else would you want to pray to the altar of roses? One of the benefits of pre-recording these episodes as opposed to live streaming on Saturdays is if we were here on a Saturday afternoon, I can assure you it would not be this calm and this quiet, and we would not have it essentially to ourselves. So this is a joy. I can be here on a weekday morning and we can really take our time and meditate on this. That's a view for the ages right there. Wow. Oh my goodness. It's just... Again, there's no point in adding words to it. I just want to eat these views. And some girls admiring a peacock over there. Tell me this isn't just perfect. I mean, look, it just goes on forever. Where else would you rather be? I feel like I've been saying that a lot lately. Ooh, this one's opened up. What can you do other than just pinch yourself and make sure it's real? Look at that. I have this bad habit of saying, look at that. Of course I know you are. That's why you're here. But you almost can't, come to a space like this, you can't even be responsible for what you blurt out instinctually. How can you really be coherent and erudite in a situation like this? Tell me this isn't worth €2.50. It's such a photographer's dream. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm in compositional heaven. Peacock's loving it too. So there is, I don't know if you've made it out yet, but there's I guess you could call it a sort of arcaded walkway. So let's walk under that a little bit. And what's wild is I could have just started here, right? I mean, you could just do an episode of this garden and not even, your audience might not realize that there's even anything else to see, but just take your mind back a few moments to what we've already seen just to get here, with the chateau and that beautiful entrance and the little gardener's house, the cottage. Look at this. How is this even possible? I don't know. I'm having like an existential crisis. I don't know how it's possible to physically be in such a perfect spot all alone. What is going on? Look at that. A couple episodes ago when I was surrounded by flowers, I started to get emotional. I started to get a little misty-eyed, and I feel those emotions creeping back. Let me just back up here because you get the payoff of the orangerie in the distance. Just try not to tear up, honestly. Just try. I defy you. All right, let me take you up to that kiosk because obviously the views from up there on the hill are really fun too. The Empress's Kiosk. I feel like this one is worth an extra look because look at it, it's just a tower of beautiful red roses. Thank you, Mother Nature. Thanks to Mother Nature for producing the roses in the first place, but also producing the talented gardeners who are able to create these structures for us. So this is the only way to get up to the kiosk. We gotta follow the path, as it were. Look at this beautiful walkway. Just snaking its way up the hill. Get ready to have your breath taken away again. Beauty. Look at that. Multi-tiered. So let's say you're a member of the nobility or you're an English lord because there were one or two fancy British guys who owned this property over time. And you just build these, you know that your property is made for your friends when your dinner guests and whatnot to roam through the gardens. And you need these little spaces for them to take a break, have a snuggle, sneak a kiss, read a book, write a book. Spectacular. And while we're zoomed in, let's admire what's inside. This is the entire ceiling made out of this beautiful lacy sort of motif. I almost wish there was a Parisian version of the word hallelujah, you know, because I feel like this is a religious experience. And I want to exclaim a word like that, but we need something custom made for flaneurs. Because you just want to say hallelujah. You just want to give thanks. It can't possibly get better than this. Here you get the sense of that perfect symmetry that, of course, French gardens are known for. And we're getting a little bit of diffused sunlight to illuminate the stage. Okay, everybody, I think on that note, we're going to wrap things up here from the Parc de Bagatelle. Really hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. My goodness, I'm so happy to be able to share this with you. And again, right now it's about mid-June if you want to one day recreate this level of rose bloomage, so to speak. And if you want to do the weekend of the rose, it usually happens in early June. Or you can come through for the Chopin Festival. All sorts of reasons to come here. So thanks everybody for this lovely moment, and I will join you on the next episode. Take care of yourself. Wait everybody, I'm not ready to say goodbye yet because I thought I finished the episode a few minutes ago, but on my way out here of the other entrance on the eastern side, I thought, well, geez, how can I not show you this? So this is that second entrance that I referenced earlier. It's called the Grille d'Honneur. And this is the eastern entrance, or exit as it were. And I just want to show you this beautiful little pavilion here. It's in the 18th century style of Rococo. In simple terms, you could call Rococo a more exaggerated and ornate style of Baroque that preceded it. And it's interesting to note that the term Rococo is similar to Baroque or Gothic, and they were derisive terms. They were actually meant to be insulting and very pejorative. And Rococo was tended to be thought of as a style related to coral, like coral reefs and seashells and rock formations, and it was considered by some critics to be a bit of a joke. And so just like Impressionism, that was a term coined as an insult to make fun, so was Rococo. But as you can see, it's just about as ornate as the French managed to get. And this acts as part of the entrance to the Parc de Bagatelle. And just, I mean, how perfect is that roof? Now the grand gates that make up this entrance as well were placed here thanks to none other than Mr. Richard Wallace, who we talked about, the designer of the fountains of Paris. And if I pop through the gate here, I might be able to give you a better idea that's not so backlit. So this episode is bookended with the western entrance that we saw earlier, which is spectacular in its own right, and here is the eastern entrance. So a fabulous way to enter the Parc de Bagatelle. And now I'm ready to officially say goodbye, I think. You know, it's always hard for me, but I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I really, really, really can't wait to share more lovely stuff with you next time around. Take care, everybody. I'll see you on the next one.